Hello and welcome to this process video showing the making of All In, my lockdown large liner print. Here I'm inking the plate, and this was a very nice process actually, because at this point, not being sure how the marks would come out, I started seeing the potential of the print and seeing that actually what I had done during the carving of the plate was producing and was about to produce a viable print. Of course, it's impossible to tell really exactly how it will print, but I could tell at this stage that a lot of the marks were good, and some were actually very pleasing. So this is now, the inking of the plate was using a oil-based safe ink which can be washed with water. I use Speedball black ink, and in this case I mixed it with some transparent base to extend it, because every inking took about 2 large tablespoons of ink to apply, and I did go quite heavy because you can see it's quite thick, the ink here. Just a close-up of the plate. I did work with quite thick ink because the paper that I'm using is Fabriano, and it's quite large. The paper is 112 by 81, and it was slightly curled because it came off a roll. You can see here how I applied the paper by having it pinned, clipped onto 2 pieces of card to keep it flat and avoid that curvature, and it's taped to the table and then laid on top of the print. For registration here, because I've only got one color, I just used a piece of paper which was the same size as the actual print, so the plate was placed on the paper exactly where I needed it to be, and then a similar sized paper was placed on top. Here I'm removing the paper, the clothes pegs. The paper no longer needs to be kept flat because it's sticking now to the ink, and then just to make sure it doesn't curl up too much, I just put a couple of clothes pegs in the corners, and just making sure that it's fixed, it's exactly placed where it needs to be, and so on. And this is quite a tricky process because the paper is so large you could easily just flop over. When I did this with wet paper, I had a very beautiful print, but the paper never really recovered. So here I'm using a glass Baron from Iron Frog Press, and also I have a smaller wooden Baron which I'm just using here very briefly just to see how it feels, from a place called Joy or Joy in the UK that make wooden artifacts, including these barons. I've returned to the glass Baron because the paper is quite thick, 150 GSM, and it's dry and with a little bit of a curvature, so I need quite a lot of pressure on it really. Now the process of rubbing, I've left it in real time, although I've taken a little bit of the duration out because it is quite tedious to watch, not to do. To do it was very pleasant, but here this goes on for a considerable amount of time, I think for another 5 minutes. So at this point, unless you enjoy this repetitive action, you can see I'm going all over the paper several times in different motions. So as I was saying, unless you enjoy watching this kind of repetitive action, which not many people do clearly, you can just fast forward through this bit and you can just watch again, just very briefly, how I rotate the Baron, use straight lines, and remember how and where I actually press down. Now this is a little bit hit and miss unless you've done this a lot, and even with the experience that I've had using this Baron, There were a couple of prints that weren't quite as dense in the corners as I had hoped. There are some bits like the edges that are easy to miss, and also the middle, right in the middle. Anyway, so I'll leave you to fast forward through this bit now. So by this time now I have been pressing the paper on top of the ink with the Baron for about 10 minutes or more, and now I'm in the process of lifting the paper off. Now, because as I said, the paper is slightly curled up because it's come off a roll, and I'm not wetting the paper, I'm pinning it back in two pieces of card on both the top and the bottom to give me some tension, to keep it flat, and to make sure that I can lift it all nicely off the plate without it curling up, catching the ink and making a mess of the corners or any part of the print. And having clipped on the card with just ordinary clothes pegs, I now use a clothes hanger, a trouser hanger, which gives me two nice firm points where the paper is clipped, and now I can lift the coat hanger and the paper up, just move the barons out of the way, and the little wooden spoon which I used for just some fine detail. And now I'm going to lift the print off, and you will see how the process of putting it on a bit of card will actually work. So you can see I'm holding it quite tight. It's on the trouser hanger, it's got the clothes pegs on, the cards keeping it flat, and nicely done. Very, very simple at this point, just being patient really so that the paper doesn't get damaged in any way or crease or whatever. And there is the print. I'm just going to hang that up for a second and have a better look at it. And actually it was a very decent print. I was really pleased with that. Now you can see here I've made several. I was able to make actually 8 for this edition. Here's a little close-up of the printed surface, which came out beautifully. There's a tiny bit of clouding here and there because of just it's handmade and every print slightly different, but overall I was very, very pleased.